Hello everyone, welcome to our new video of Angular from Scratch series. As in the last video, we have covered pipes. Now in this video, we'll be covering HTTP and API calls. So whenever we are working on any front-end technologies, there is always a backend server, a backend framework, which will be basically providing us all the necessary data. So backend play a mediator role between our client side DUI and the database server. Okay, so it interact with us and it interact with database as well. It takes data from us and save to the DB, and it pull out data from DB and provide to us on the UI. So HTTP is and API calls are very essential to perform all these operations. So there are few common methods that we majorly use in the HTTP. So that is get, post, put, delete and patch. So get is used to get the data, post is used to save our data, put and patch we use to update and manipulate our existing data, and delete is used to basically remove an entry, a row from the database. So now let's move ahead to our IDE, and then we will create our service class and we'll see how we implement all those methods and use them in the real world. Okay, so we are inside our first app that we have created. Okay, so first we need to create a service. So the syntax to create Angular service is ng g for generate, S for service and then service name. Okay, so we use it, or either instead of S you can use complete service. So we have created one service, that is user service. We have created in the previous tutorials as well. We will be using that. I have added some method inside it for quick references. Okay, so let me give you a brief again. So we use a module called HttpClientModule. Okay, and we import it inside our app.config.ts from Angular 17 onwards. Okay, so once we import this in our app.config.ts, so all those classes, interface and methods that is available to interact with the backend server using this HTTP, so it will be automatically provided to us by Angular. Okay, so we will have to import it, and once this is imported, now we can go to our service and we will be importing HTTP client from this Angular common HTTP. Okay, once this is imported, okay, and inside our service class which we just created, okay, now we'll be injecting the HTTP client inside our constructor. Once this HTTP is injected, now we can call all these methods on this HTTP object. Okay, we can call get, post, patch, delete and everything. Now I've created a get method. The syntax is quite same for all, just a minor change. So one thing to note is all these HTTP calls returns us an observable. Okay, it always returns us an observable. Type, we can define what type of object we are expecting. Either we are expecting a user object, either we are expecting an user array, either we are expecting nothing. So that can be modified. Now for get call, we will be using the get method http.get, and then we will provide the return type, and then in the get parameter we are passing the URL for our backend API. So for now I have taken a fake API endpoint, like I have taken a fake API endpoint which will be returning us some data in the JSON format. So in the real world it will be an actual backend endpoint that you will be hitting. Okay, so I have taken this, provided this URL to this request, and then it will provide us all the users. Similarly, if you want to get a user on a particular user based on a particular ID, I do not want to fetch all user. This will basically just hit a get request which will fetch all user. But if I want to fetch a single user, I need to pass an ID in this way with my URL. Okay, so then it will return me only a single object, a single user. And if I want to post, basically I want to save some data, then I'll be using http.post. And post takes an object which I want to save. So in the get request, we do not pass any object. It does not take any object, but the post request takes the object that we want to save. Okay, in our case, we'll be passing a user object. And then we have patch and we have put also. Okay, so I'm using patch here for updation because I'll be updating a single field. If you want to update multiple fields, then you will be using the put. Okay, and then we will be having a delete method, http.delete, if we want to delete an entry. Okay, and it will also take an ID, because if I am deleting certain row in the DB, so it will require a unique ID, that which ID wants to delete. Okay, so these are all the methods that we have created inside our service class. Now let's move ahead to our component class where we will be calling this service. So I have just injected that service class, my user service class, okay, here in my component, and now I have created these methods that I'll be calling from my HTML. Okay, so in my HTML I have load user, add user, start edit, update user and delete user. Okay, so when I'll call add user from HTML, it will hit the user service, it will pass it the data object, and then I'll be subscribing to it. So when I'm hitting an API call, so it will take some time. Okay, so in that time period, I do not want my code to move ahead. Okay, I want something to some logic to be placed only after I get the response. So I'm subscribing to it. So once I subscribe to an API call, it return me an observable. So once that observable is back, this subscribing thing will tell me, okay, the observable, the response is back now with an observable. Now you can subscribe and you can just reuse it inside it. Whatever data you have asked for, it has provided you this. Okay, so in this subscribe parameter, you will get the response of an API, and then that response you can use in your HTML to manipulate your HTML and all. Okay, so I've created for add, I've created for update, same I'm calling for update, I'm calling patch user, for deleting I'm calling user service dot delete user, I'm passing ID. Okay, so this is my component class. Now I've created an HTML, okay, where I'll be showing the user list. Okay, I'm using ngFor directive, okay, where I'll be getting a users list from the database, and I'm iterating over this list again and again. I'll create a complete list, and I'm adding the edit and delete button also there to edit a particular entry. Okay, and then I've created a form for add user, and then I've created a form for edit user as well. Okay, now let's run. I think the servers is already started. Yeah, let me launch my application. Okay, so you can see this is the basic form I created. For now, my user list is empty. Let's see why it is empty. Okay, I have created load user, but I have not called it anywhere. So let me call it from constructor load user. Okay, so either you can call it from your constructor, or you can implement ng on init, our hook. Okay, and it will then, when you load your application, when your component will load, it will load users for you automatically. See, okay, when you refresh your page as well, it has loaded this dummy data from my fake API. Okay, and with every data I have added a delete operation. Okay, so this is happening from this method. This is calling get user, and then get user hitting my service class, and the service class is hitting this get method with this fake API endpoint. If I open this fake API endpoint, you will see this has some fake data. I'm getting this same data inside this class. Okay, so that is the get. Okay, now we have the edit operation. So when I click on edit, it will open an edit form for me. It has this data all auto updated. Okay, now I can update my data. For example, I want to update the name. I will say Lillian Graham. Right now it's Lillian Graham. I will tell the Lillian Graham 123. Okay, once I click on update, what will happen? It will come here in my it will come here, it will update user, it will take this, it will call patch user with that particular ID, and then it will return and update the HTML. So let me Lingram 123, let me update it. You'll notice here, Lingram 123 is changed here. Okay, and then you can delete the object also. Like when you click on delete, it will delete that object. See, it is deleting. So backend, what it is doing, when you click on delete, the call comes here, it calls my user service dot delete with a particular ID. Okay, the row that I'm calling. So if you go to the HTML with the delete, I'm passing that user ID that I have within the object. Okay, so when I'm passing the ID with the delete ID, and when I go to my service class, it has this ID as number, and the same is passing to the HTTP. So this will call the delete method in my API with an ID, and it will delete that object, and then it will update the UI. So I can delete as many as I can delete. Okay, I can add an user as well. So if I want to add, dummy user and dummy email @gmail.com. I can add it. You can see my dummy user is added as well. Okay, so for add, I am using this add user method, and it is calling add user. I am passing the object that I am creating. Okay, so basically the object is this dot new user. This dot new user is this new user. New user is contains name and email by default, and where it is coming from? It is coming from HTML. Okay, when I am clicking on, so I've done the ng model two-way binding that we have studied in our previous videos. If not, you can just go back to those previous video and reiterate these things. Okay, so I've taken the new user dot name. So whatever user is typing, it will automatically take these values inside my object. Same for email. Okay, once these values are present inside this, now I'm just passing the same object to the API. My API is taking and calling the http.post, and it is saving to the database, and the same is reflecting on my UI. So I hope now the HTTP and API calls are clear to you. So now I'll see you in the next video where we'll be discussing about the routing and navigation. Thank you.